we're back.
Oh, are we?
That's right.
Oh my God, we missed one.
Well, what can you say? You can't win them all.
No.
So anyway, this is the Jimmy Doane Show, everybody. We're live twice a week, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Universal Coordinated Time minus 5 hours for those of you internationally tuning in. Today is the 13th day of November.
Friday the 13th falls on a Wednesday.
There it is. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have no editors, no filters, no net. We're here to discuss whatever we feel like.
Yeah.
So we're bringing you the news from the last few days. I'm here in the studio with the voice of Jimmy Doane. And he is in his studio.
Oh, here we are.
And here we are.
Oh, look at this. I probably shouldn't have worn this black sweater that blends with the chair. But you notice that I'm in a sweater today.
Well, yeah. Well, that's because the Arctic Blast
I'm telling you, and I'll tell you, cold down here. I mean, it's 55, 60 degrees.
I know, bitter.
Woo! I'm bundled up for that.
Yeah, no, cars aren't starting.
No, just unbelievable.
Cats indoors.
No, really, it's just, they're just, what do you do? I have to really load up on the... Pandemonium, right. Nobody goes outside in this weather. Woo! So, anyway, the winter blast, I saw where it came down, it said it was from Siberia. Came over the pole and came down, and they were talking about now
it got cold.
Well, they said basically record colds across the whole place. I mean, records. I don't know if I got them down here, but there were several of them that were records. Cold records were broken. And they said, November? Are you kidding? These are January and February temperatures up in Michigan, up north, and New York, and all that stuff. They said,
with the number of data points that they now collect, I cannot imagine that you can't have record-breaking temperatures every single day somewhere. Because I think there's a little wind or something, and it's like, okay, well, we haven't taken the temperature in this particular area.
Right.
For more than 50 years or something. So.
Right. When you're talking about the weather, of course, you got the UV index, the wind index, how big, I don't know, how big is the hole over the Antarctic? On and on, there's all kinds, there's always a record, yeah. So anyway, we're having no records here in Gainesville, but they did say we were supposed to get some freezing, I think, just right at the very tippy top of Florida, which we're not there.
Run for your lives.
Run for your lives, that's right. So they're talking here, a 50-car pileup in Ohio. I looked at some of the pictures, and you're sitting there thinking, here's coming down, and you're going down the road, and it's not like you've never seen this weather before in Ohio or someplace like this, and yet you have a 50-car pileup, and 2 people killed, and
yeah, it doesn't surprise me that much. I mean, when you go out to LA as you've been and you get in the 405 traffic and there's 6 lanes wide, people doing 80 miles an hour.
That's true.
All you need
it's actually surprised there are not more accidents.
That's what it comes down to.
Right. When you think about, seriously, out in LA, to speak of that, when you go on, now they do have in some places, when you try and get on, they have a little red light there that says you go and you can't go. Yeah, you trust that? I don't think so. But
well, it's not for you. It's like, that's like for the traffic generally,
well, no, you're coming on and there's a thing that says don't try and blend in yet.
Right.
Well, the one thing I found out was out there, the bigger the car, the faster you can blend in. They will get out of your way. And that's why when I went out there and rented a car, I rented a big old Cadillac. And of course it's a rental, so what do I care? Yeah. So, and I would just bust into those lines, and I'm telling you, people would scatter like bowling pins. So it was great fun. Anyway, powerful Arctic blast, normally mild south, it says here. Air mass, it's total in the middle of January and so forth. 7 degrees broke previous records set in 1986, which I thought was interesting, that 1986, just a couple, 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
That's
one thing
if
it breaks a record from 1886,
yeah,
that I understand.
Yeah, but people think they have this crazy image of the temperature.
It broke it by 1 degree.
Yeah.
So.
And again, it's because, well, the thermometer hasn't been right here. The one over there.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Fine.
Yeah, well, actually, I just mentioned that because right around here we've got a patio out here that usually stays 5 or 6, 8 degrees warmer than the rest of the place. I'm not sure why exactly, but it does.
It radiates the heat. Then.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, moving on. This is a little bit about the impeachment stuff. I don't want to talk a lot about it because it's really it's just started to get crazy. But I love it. What I like is the various headlines. Everything is a bombshell.
Yeah.
I mean, the president faces bombshell claim that he was overheard asking his EU ambassador about probes the day after the notorious call with the president as impeachment hearings began with a partisan split. I mean, what if this headline? I've been looking at this. A diplomat, this guy William Taylor, revealed a potential bombshell in his televised impeachment testimony Wednesday.
They've run out of words.
I know they have. They've not out of words. But I'm saying he said he obtained about a staff aide who overheard Donald. This is not secondary information. This is tertiary. I mean,
yeah.
I overheard somebody talking about this. Well, what are you talking about? This is not a bombshell.
No,
this is hearsay of hearsay.
Well, it's at the very least hearsay. If he's talking about, if the person you overheard is talking about what somebody else did.
No, but I'm saying here's a guy who was near, from what I understand here, this guy overheard an aide who said he overheard the conversation.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, look, this is fishing all over the place. Go for it. They've opened the door. They got to walk through the thing. You got to have the show, and look, you got to ask yourself how many of them would really be excited to have Pence as the president.
Yeah, that's number one, right? For sure. The other thing about this is, like you said, this is all for show. And it's an exercise. A lot of it is an exercise in futility.
It's a giant advertisement for the coming election, and from my perspective, it's just fine because at least there's gridlock. At least they're not passing laws.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, they're all sitting there. Everybody's running for something, but it's interesting that the partisan divide, of course, is ever wider. I mean, it's as wide as the Grand Canyon, and what these people are doing. They're just that
makes sense. There's just more and more at stake now. They've realized every president can spend $1 trillion a year over and above the taxes. Spending has just gone off the charts.
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that.
Which makes their power off the charts, which is why DC real estate is off the charts. And
that's right. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Speaking of presidents, Buttigieg has risen. He is now ahead in Iowa.
Risen in the polls.
He's risen in the polls. He leaped past Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren.
In some poll, one poll or another.
Well, in India, it's Monmouth University poll. I don't know.
Monmouth.
Yeah, Monmouth, right.
It's like the weirdest name.
Monmouth, yeah. That's one mouth or something.
I don't know what the origin of that is. And whatever it is,
I think it's a university.
Monmouth. No, I know. But
why do you give them any credence?
No. I'm talking about the exact phonemes, Monmouth. Like, who thought of that? Like, it'll be mouth, but it'll be I don't know.
General Monmouth.
It's the weirdest combination of phonemes for an English speaker. It's like it's like chalkboard fingernails to me.
Okay. Anyway, shows Buttigieg with a 22% support, followed by Joe with 19 and Liz at 18 and Bernie Sanders at 13.
Well, Buttigieg, I think, is the most competent of the group. I think he's far and away the most intelligent and educated. He's a Rhodes Scholar, speaks several languages. When you hear him talk, he's obviously intelligent, articulate, he's educated, knows what he's doing, but at the same time, he's so inexperienced. I don't think that, if he starts winning, I think he might be able to pull it off. But then they say his support among the blacks is terrible because he's gay or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I guess 537 or 538, the guy over there who does the polling, will be able to tell us.
Maybe, yeah.
Because he's got good polling information. But I think it's still wide open.
No.
Look, Hillary.
Well, interesting again, I saw another one, another thing that said there are lot. I forget exactly what they. Every time, let me put it this way.
She's foaming the runway, man.
She's foaming the runway. One of the things that I object to is when I see adjectives like he was very, very, very concerned. I'm going, okay, come on, one's enough.
And not even one, as you remember. The word, very is one of those words you're supposed to just cross out.
Right. And so I saw some of the stuff that is more and more people are thinking Hillary should run. I'm going, come on.
Right. Well, that's just political talk. Like Schiff said, they asked him, well, what specifically are you thinking of impeaching on? He said, well, there are any number of topics. Any number?
Can you name one?
Yeah.
The phone call?
Actually, there's some number, not just any number. Right. And do you have some idea of what that number... To say there's any number just leaves it wide open, of course. And it leaves you open to infer whatever you want. He knows what he's doing when he says that. But, because he's obviously a talented politician in terms of doublespeak.
Right, triple speak.
Yeah. So...
Well, that's...
But, yeah, so Hillary, though, I think she's gonna, if she were smart, I think I would wait till the last possible minute to get in, because she's gonna get attacked. She's gonna have to go against the progressives in the wing, and it could be an ugly fight.
Well, one thing is I don't believe that you have to qualify on a ballot initiative or anything to get into the Iowa caucuses. You can just go down there because they're caucuses.
Right.
But New Hampshire, they have a cutoff date for when you have to, go, because I guess it's a real election in the primary there.
Yeah.
So you have.
If she gets the machine behind her, she should be fine. But they went all out last time, obviously, by marginalizing Bernie. And the question is the machine going to go for that again? And I don't know enough about the people at the top of the machine in control. I'm talking about the Democratic Party, obviously. Right. But
they still have super delegates, don't they?
I think they have some.
I think they might have trimmed it down a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. But at any rate, yeah. But she's certainly an experienced campaigner.
Yeah. Well, she didn't do anything except for not win. And there's the argument that can be made that she sort of did, or she came very, very close. Anyway.
She won. It's amazing when you think about it. The popular vote, she was ahead by 3 million. Everybody knows that number. But in the states that if she had only swung 30 or 40,000 votes
in a couple of those states,
she'd have won.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about
razor thin, and that was before 4 years of anti-Trump media.
Right.
So.
And of course, you see what
she'll have to. Obviously, I think it comes down to the economy again, but. The field is winnowing a bit, but
there aren't people that have actually dropped out yet. It's interesting because I'm going to talk.
They're dropping down in terms of their.
There's a bunch of them now that are in low single digits,
and then.
There's another one. There's another one that's getting ready to jump in by those. Some guy I've never heard of. I think is it governor of Pennsylvania or no?
There's still a couple of guys, and that shows you just the field is still wide open. But people are obviously starting to be a little bit wary of war, and we didn't mention her billionaire's tax. Did you see the billionaire calculator?
No.
Oh my God! This is just. Like right out of the Castro playbook for me. So she got criticized. Bill Gates came on and said, this was the news of the last week from my perspective. Bill Gates came out and said, well, I've paid a lot of money in taxes.
Right.
$10 billion or something he'd calculated he's paid. And he said, I wouldn't mind if I had to pay $20 billion. That would be fine.
Easy for him to say.
Well, look, here's the thing. This is a news thing, and he's telling people this, and then he makes a joke. He's like, but now I have to question, I've got $100 billion, so what am I going to get to keep here, basically? Ha, 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 ha. Everybody laughs. And then Liz and him start tweeting back and forth.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. And yes, okay, now you can imagine Liz comes right out like the school teacher and says, listen now, we don't want to take all your money. But yeah, it's so nice of her.
Yeah.
She says, but if you're curious as to how much, I can promise you it's not going to be the whole 100 billion. She says.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, exactly. Now then Bill answers back in the exact way that you would expect someone, an educated, very nice guy who you know Bill is, obviously, to respond. He comes back magnanimously. The programs that you and the Democrats have been considering are fantastic. I look forward to working with you guys in the future to make some of these become a reality in positive ways. I'm sure we can find common ground. The whole platitudes thing. But there's another way to read his statement. And it kicked in about halfway through when you're reading his statement.
Oh, yeah?
And that is a hostage negotiating for his life. And there's no other way. After I started to read it that way, it was like he was saying, I'll do anything. I'll do anything.
I will pay to get
Seriously,
my...
just don't put me in jail next to Mark Zuckerberg, where obviously he's going.
Yeah.
And it sounded, just for a moment, it was just like the worst kind of extortion. And it was like dictator to extortionee, direct contact, direct. We're looking at your money, but we won't take all of it. We promise we won't take all of it. Oh no, it's fine. Please have what you want. I'll just leave it out for you, and you send the agents, and they can take whatever they like, and then everything will be great. I can't wait. This is going to be so much fun. And that's what it read like.
And it's not a quid pro quo.
Oh yeah, no.
Money in exchange for freedom? No.
I totally get that. I'm paying this because I owe this. It was ugly.
Well, when you think about it, of course, he's created, they call them the Microsoft millionaires. Mm-hmm. These are the people that got in early. I mean, there's hundreds
anybody who even remotely understands the economics of it would buy Bill Gates beer or dinner for the rest of their life. If he showed up at our door and said, I need a place to stay, it would be like, dude, here's your room, whatever you need, you can stay as long as you need to, whatever.
Clean sheets.
We got you.
Every day.
We got you, Bill, from here on out, whatever you need.
Yeah.
And that should be your attitude towards Bill and people like him. And her attitude is, we're thinking of throwing you in jail.
Right.
But we might just take all of your money, if you kowtow, right, or half or whatever. If you kowtow half, and then of course you see the memes going around the internet, which directly off of this, where people are saying, so let me get this straight, if Bill Gates, if there was a 2% tax that had been in, Warren's tax had been in effect since the 1980s, then Bill Gates would have only $50 billion, and we would all have good health care and good education and good this and good that. And Bernie's coming out and saying we could cure homelessness for Bill Gates' $100 billion. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, it's like, look, you spent 230 times that in the deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you,
what do you got
over and above what you collected in taxes.
Right.
And what do you got to show for that?
Right.
What did you do with the first 23 trillion?
Well, that's right. Well, not only
what
that.
The hell?
You look at the direct expenditure since the war on poverty. The war on poverty.
Right.
This is in the 70s or late 60s or whenever that was. Wasn't Johnson did the war on poverty? So that would have been 67 or something. Mm-hmm. War on
50
poverty.
50 years.
Yeah, 50 years of war on poverty, and you lost the war.
Trillions of dollars.
Literally, I think somebody figured out it's been $3 trillion spent so far on the war on poverty.
Yeah, well.
And we still have, 44 million people on food stamps.
Bernie can do it for 1/300th of that, as long as it comes directly from Bill Gates.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Now, the funny thing was she did, though, obviously, she posted a billionaire's calculator tout.
Okay, what was that?
And so you can go, and it says, are you a billionaire? Yes, no. And, of course, you hit yes. And then it says, are you Bill Gates? Yeah, exactly. And, of course, you hit yes. Uh-huh. And then it says, you would pay $6.5 billion. And this is year one.
Right.
Okay. And of course, and it was also like, ooh, wow, you have a lot of money and stuff like that, and aren't you wonderful and everything? But look, you'd still have $94 billion left or whatever it is.
We take 6% next year.
Next year, yeah, exactly.
Then you'll have 88.
That's
and then
right.
You'll have,
yeah, and so But you could put in like
We're going to whittle you down to being merely a millionaire.
That's right. Well, yeah, over 50 years. But of course, they don't mind that because from their perspective, you'll be dead then, and then they want the inheritance tax to take the rest of it anyway.
Right.
So that makes perfect sense. But what they don't understand, what people are starting to figure out, is that people who have $1 billion don't have $1 billion in the bank account.
Right.
And if they have a business that's worth $1 billion, but they don't have a dollar in cash, then they have to liquidate assets to recover that stuff. And so you upset the balance, and you run you can think of just as a quick example, you have a landlord with 100 houses. Well, what you're talking about is every year you get to take 2 of the houses from the guy.
Right.
I mean, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Because they're just...
He has to sell and pay. This is the way, of course, this is one of the things that they had in England years ago. They had the wealth tax. Mm-hmm. And this is what made a lot of the really stately mansions from 100 years, 200 years ago have to go into either be sold or they are tourist attractions because in order and when you go through some of these castles over there, they're great places and everything, but you pay pay $5 or $10 to go through there, and there are certain places that are owners only, that kind of stuff. But I mean, basically, it's a giant Airbnb.
Right.
I mean, the owner gets to live over in some hovel in part of the house, and have people traipsing through there all the time.
Quarters, right?
Yeah, and and I guess the owner gets to come out there and, hello, there's Lord Bishop here. Let's shake your hand, and
take a selfie.
For an extra £5, he'll shake your hand. Fix your photo op with the Lord Bishop, Lord Wombly. Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is great. Okay.
Well, there's that, and then people have recognized already that if Warren were to somehow get some type of billionaire's wealth tax initiated, that she would also necessarily need a capitals control portion.
Right.
And
because you can imagine people are suddenly moving out of the country.
Bye.
Well, that's what's happened to New York.
Well, it happened in France, remember, just a few years back.
And they said they have, what's interesting, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. What we're seeing is the flight to Belgium from France. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are, I don't know if the Belgians probably like it because they're having all the French millionaires move up there. Gerard Perraudot, the big actor, Gerard.
Oh,
Depardieu, right? He moved up there. He said, "I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. Taxes are killing me." But he was the high visibility one. But he moved to not Brussels, but he moved up to in that area, yeah, mm-hmm, and into Belgium, I think, someplace. But apparently, there's the whole expat community up there of French people. Of course, they speak the same lingo.
Wave. It makes perfect sense. People aren't just going to let you just take their money and take their businesses and take their stuff.
Well,
so they're going to fight and they're going to leave.
We're going to talk more about that here in a minute.
So Warren has a problem, but we'll see what happens with the field.
Yeah, we will. Okay.
One last thing about it. We didn't mention this. Bloomberg is in since last time we had a podcast, and my thought was just, here's a guy with $57 billion. Can you imagine he gets in, and because of all the political backstabbing, he has to go to prison because of a campaign violation over $150,000 paying some hooker or something, and spend the rest of his life in prison because of money he could have spent on a meal at some point.
Right.
It's just all right. That's all I had to say.
No, well, I mean, you can bet you'd have your private Gulf Stream at the ready.
Well, I mean, you can't even. I mean, he can do whatever he wants now. $57 billion. He has absolute power in terms of mobility and whatever he could do. Live for however long, set people up in any countries, whatever it is, and you risk it all to run for president at this point because there's just so many pitfalls where you could go to prison for not even trying to do anything.
Yeah, that's right. Well, was it Dinesh D'Souza and some other people that they tried to nail? And
they get the campaign finance. It's like somebody else paid some money for you on your behalf or some. What? No, it's.
Well, speaking of expats and that sort of thing, go back to California. The wave of newcomers in Boise, Idaho, and what it is. Where did all the hostility come from? And of course, what they're doing is they're having bumper stickers and everything as the flood of Californians go up there, and of course the people that are there are all upset because in some of those communities the house prices are going through the ceiling because somebody sells their $700,000 or $500,000 or $1 million home, and they come up and buy a $350,000 and they bid the price up and now the median prices on some of the communities have risen by 50 and 60% for housing prices, and and of course then the rents have gone up and the cost of living and everything, and a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, don't bring your California, the reason you left there, don't bring that here, don't bring the liberally type stuff here. Oh, they're apparently bumper stickers and everything that said, if you're from California, go home. And so anyway,
seems a little prejudiced.
Well, no. Of course, you say that, but again, it says the Idaho Department of Labor said the gem state. I did not know this, that Idaho is the gem state, is tied with Nevada as the fastest growing in the nation. More Californians were moving there than transplants from any other state. So anyway, one of the problems is that in order to try and keep them out, the proposal is to have what they call the 1, 2, 3 property tax adjustment. And what they do is if you've lived in Idaho for more than 60 years or something, you pay no property tax. And then it goes down from there until you pay all the property tax if you've been here for fewer than 5 or 8 years or something. So they said what you have to do is if you're going to come in here, you got to pay your way. But the people that have been here paying taxes all this time are not going to float the bill and everything like that. So no newcomers would shoulder the burden, and this gives needed relief to longtime residents and forces new people to pay their share. Interesting, it's not their fair share as it is, but just their share. And maybe it might, and this is the other thing, maybe it might have them think twice about moving here and discourage out-of-state investors. So, I don't know. It's
one way to keep them out.
That's one way. You got money to take them. That's right. Moving on to another thing, I thought that it was kind of interesting when you talk about the way people move. The capital moves or people move, and of course when people take their money out of California and move to someplace nice, bucolic like Idaho and Nevada. I would think that Nevada would be a little better place myself, but it gets nippy.
Desert. Yeah.
It gets nippy in Idaho.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we got relatives there that it's already
up in the mountain too.
Well, I know, but they've already had 2 feet of snow, for God's sakes. Snow leaves around May. It's like Sweden, having been there myself. Now, speaking of Sweden, shootings, blasts, and everything prompt Denmark to tighten border controls. Now, one of the things that's interesting is, since I lived in Sweden, they built a bridge, actually, that you can drive from Denmark to Malmo or to Sweden. And, it's a nice long bridge or whatever, but they've done that. So what they're doing now is they're actually going to start to put border patrols in Denmark and inspect people as they come through. And this is, of course, in the European Union or whatever those people, you're supposed to have no borders. Yeah. Well, they've said, what's happening is we're getting, terrorists coming down here and bombing the crap out of Denmark. And apparently they've had a real run on this.
From Sweden?
From Sweden. What happens is something, I forget what it is, but the minority in Malmo, which is right at the southern tip of Sweden, is now foreign born with Mohammed names.
So the influx was so big that now they're outfluxing into
Denmark. And
where did they come in from?
Syria and other places. They're refugees.
They fly in and now they're going out.
I don't know. I mean, you can drive in once you make it to the European Union, you can make it up there.
Yeah, but you'd have to go through Denmark to get to Sweden to begin with. Yeah, and then you come.
Right. But now what's happened is there are apparently a lot of young gangs in Malmo now. These are like the Crips and the Bloods. Okay. And these are the people that are running down there and creating some mayhem, robbery and everything in Denmark. And I'm not sure exactly why, but it's gotten so bad that the Denmark has said, wait a minute, we are now going to institute border controls on the border. And you're sitting there thinking about what this was never supposed to be. But you can see why in a lot of respects, because Sweden for a while would grant citizenship. If you showed up there as a refugee, not like here, where you know, but in Sweden,
Yeah, they were
you got
very
an automatic
generous.
green card.
Yeah.
In Sweden, you show up with your burqa and your whatever it is, and we welcome you in here because we're Swedes. And now the Swedes are learning that, you know, it's as I say, they're learning. You know, after a couple of bomb blasts and everything like that. And as I say, they've got apparently a huge community of influx. You can call it racist or whatever you want to call it, but people that are not Swedish born in Malmo, in that area, and a couple of other areas as well. But so anyway, Denmark has decided to put up some border patrols, and I thought it's interesting. They said the checks would start yesterday, and supposedly these border controls are going to go. I'm not sure why, but it says they're going to go for 6 months. And they're right there at the bridge, at the what's this called, the Øresund Bridge, and
Well, there's long been friction between Denmark and Sweden, obviously.
really,
Yeah, I mean they've been at odds throughout history.
well, maybe way a long time ago, but you know, when I was there, the only thing when I was there,
hundreds of years.
yeah, but when I was there 50 years ago or whatever it was, the only thing that was funny, I thought, was when I drove from, after having spent a year in Sweden, and I was driving down to France, and of course you have to take the ferry boat over to Denmark. And as I got off the ferry boat, they looked at me and they said, you know, I'm not sure you can come in here, because at the time in Sweden it was left-hand drive, and of course in Denmark it was right-hand drive. And apparently what happened, it takes you a little while to get used to it. Now, of course, I told them, I said, well, I'm from the United States where we do this. So they reluctantly let me through. I had a Swedish tag on the car. I bought a Volvo there.
Yeah, and you look like a Swede too.
And I looked like a Swede too. I mean, let me tell you, after a year in Sweden,
Yeah.
I was whiter.
Oh, I bet you were
white,
pasty
I
white.
mean, pasty white.
Yeah.
And so they and I spoke Swedish.
Right.
But but it was interesting because I didn't speak much Danish. Little I could kind of hobble
Yeah,
through
very
it.
close.
But basically, when they saw me come through in my Volvo with a Swedish tag, they spoke to me in Swedish. And so I spoke back in Swedish, and they said, you know, do you know how to drive on the right-hand side, you know, högertrafik, and that kind of stuff. And I said, but I'm American. And then they immediately switched. Then they knew, and they switched to English, because they all speak English. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. Anyway, new border controls. And I think this is the coming wave, I tell you right now, in a lot.
Well, obviously they've had some problems with that Schlingenstein or whatever that Flangenstein or whatever that policy is with the free movement among the European community states. They weren't expecting quite that free of movement.
No. Well, it is.
But they have to remember, and they don't know this because they're not immigrant-rich countries, that it's never the first generation of immigrants that move in and assimilate. It's always their progeny. It's the second generation. So you have to tolerate a little bit of discontent and a little bit of unrest in the first generation if you want the second.
I think that when the cultural difference is so huge, I mean, what they're worried about, these are the teenage gangs that are creating the problem this is teenage gangs that are creating the problem.
If they're teenage gangs, then there's some type of an economic incentive for them.
That could very well be. I mean, I don't know, but they're apparently setting up their, as I say, it's like kind of like the Crips and the Bloods or something.
Right.
As near as I can
and the
figure.
Crips and the Bloods are probably drug dealers, you know, which I don't know what they would deal in Sweden, but snow, yeah, or I don't know, firearms or something, whatever it is that you can't get there. So,
yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, moving along on
Caribbean food or something. Yeah.
Caribbean food. Yeah, right.
Hey, come on, I got you the food right here.
I got your food right here. I think that, let me just see. Okay. San Francisco's new DA.
Okay.
Public urination will not be prosecuted.
Has it been prosecuted?
Apparently, we will not prosecute cases involving quality of life crimes. Quality of life, listen to this. Crimes such as public camping, offering or soliciting sex, public urination, blocking the sidewalk, etc., should not and will not be prosecuted. he vowed as a response to a civil liberties, the questionnaire from the ACLU.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is that this is exactly the opposite of what they did in New York to clean up Times Square.
Yeah, this is the opposite of what'll work also.
Right. So I mean, can you imagine now that you can go out and I suppose soliciting sex, as I say, and camping, tent city, and your public urination, which I would imagine might include defecation.
Yeah, for sure.
And no, we're not going to prosecute you for that. No, you sit there.
Well, they don't know. They've lost control in San Francisco.
Yeah,
obviously,
right.
From all accounts.
Yeah.
There's crap on the everywhere, needles and stuff, and
what's interesting is every once in a while they go and they will. Stefan Molyneux took a tour of the area, and he would interview. He invited a girl that's running for mayor, and they walked around, and they found out there were store owners that had been encroached on. And every morning before they open up, they've got to sweep everything out of the way and hose it down. That's right. So anyway, but this is so the opposite of things. This is you're welcoming total vagrants. I mean, this is you talk about. I mean, I think to myself, would I walk into a store where there's some bum hanging around outside asking? It's bad enough around here when they're just in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you don't want to hardly look at them or anything.
Yeah. Well, it'll get worse until somebody steps in and does something about it. But obviously, not prosecuting people for it is not gonna do anything about it. That's not gonna make it go away.
Yeah. Well, speaking of no laws, with no laws to stop them, defense firms are on track to make killer robots a reality. Now, this is the Skynet.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting. Killer robots are lethal autonomous weapon systems designed to make life or death decisions on their own without human control. It's a worrying leap that is the third revolution in warfare after gunpowder and the atomic bomb, whatever you want to say. Both activists and military leaders have called on international regulation. Good luck. We have a thing, the Geneva Convention. Hey, you can't do, you're in Stalag 17 or whatever, and the Geneva. Give me a break.
Well, people don't quite understand that there's literally no such thing as international law. The whole concept of law exists within the borders of countries. And
well,
every single thing that's done as international law is done by agreement between the parties.
Okay.
There is no forcing. The International Criminal Court has voluntary jurisdiction. So you have to submit yourself to the jurisdiction of the court.
Well, when they rounded up Maklovich or whatever his name was, crimes against humanity, they tried him.
I know, but there is no law for that. They made those laws up on the spot. Absolutely, just made it up. Like, well, you guys are in agreement here, huh? All in favor of prosecuting, say aye. Aye.
Well, but I mean,
crimes against humanity. You guys are
the guy that was on trial wasn't really for it, was he?
No.
I mean,
no. Well, they set the precedent during the Nuremberg trials.
I get, yeah.
And since then, whenever you cross the line too far in front of too many countries, that's why they do the coalition thing. So we have legitimacy now. We have a coalition.
That's right. The coalition of the willing. That's right.
Yes. So nobody's going to get anybody to agree to anything international on any type of.
Well, I thought they're trying
military.
They're trying to wonder if they could have an outright ban on autonomous weapons. But the key governments, interestingly enough,
we're going to have a ban. We want a ban on weapons that are better than ours.
Well, they said that they've scouted around, kind of like the Paris Agreement or whatever, and they found the two major countries that have not signed on: Russia and the United States.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so have resisted. As long as states haven't agreed collectively, as you just said, to come up with some kind of regulatory regime, or ideally a preemptive ban, the fear is very real companies that will be crossing this plane and will develop and produce and eventually field weapons that lack sufficient human control. Well, I don't know about you, but autonomous, that's the very definition of no human control,
Yeah.
number one. And of course, the interestingly enough, I don't have the list here, but they listed the companies that were involved in this, and they're all the Raytheon, Lockheed, and all this, and then the defense contractors in Russia, and these people are all, they're doing this stuff daily, practically. I mean, they're having the robots now that will carry your backpack, and they.
And I think this will be a great advancement from the standpoint of actually saving lives in warfare, because what'll happen is the machines will get so good. It'll be kind of like a Star Trek-y thing, where what you'll do is when you'll get in a war with somebody, you'll send out your machines, and it'll be your machines against their machines. And whoever's machine wins, the other side's just going to give up, because they know they're not going to have any chance against the machines. So as soon as your army gets wiped out, you're like, okay. So instead of it just being officers who would say, well, it's not fair to fire on the officers.
Yeah, right.
Of course, now it'll be, well, you can't fire on the humans. You set your machines to kill our machines, and we'll do the same for you. And whoever's machines win, that's who wins.
Well, you say that, but of course that does bring up the ultimate, the really one of the great Star Trek. From the original Star Trek, where they had the computers, the machines, fight it out,
right,
and then they would voluntarily go into the distance.
But see, you wouldn't even need to do that. That was the flaw in that particular storyline, was you don't need to kill the humans. You just transfer the control. You just have the war is always about control. So you just have the dead humans, instead of stepping into the disintegrator, they just abdicate, and then the other ones just take over. And I mean, and they could theoretically, I guess, you could get into a situation where they could disintegrate who they wanted to at that point. And then of course you can have the problem where like the machines forget to turn off.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what
The last order we got was kill all the humans.
Right. Well, not only that, when they looked at the they always have the Vega or what, there was at least one Star Trek where they considered the carbon-based life forms a disease.
Oh yeah.
So,
sure. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the mistake where the computer gets so advanced it forgets who its creator is.
Yeah. Well, that's when Shatner comes up and says, I'm your...
Speaking of that, you talk about machine efficiency.
Yeah.
Did you see today the SpaceX launch again?
No.
They just launched the Falcon again for the 4th time.
Okay.
And so I've got a great shot out of Kennedy here, and the neat thing though was the landing of the booster stage.
Right.
That thing came down. It came down and landed with no margin of, like, it wasn't like a it was like shunk, and it was down. I mean, it dropped from 50 feet to 0 feet in 1 second.
Wow.
And it wasn't like it was a cushioned landing or anything. It calculated it perfectly. It knew exactly how much thrust to put out so that it landed on its legs with the exact momentum necessary.
Now, these are what they're on a platform out in the ocean?
Yes.
What's surprising to me is, doesn't the ocean have waves?
I don't know how far out they go, or how. I mean, the platform's got to be pretty big, so it's probably pretty impervious to 6-foot waves. And maybe they do it in a nice bay, so it's pretty stable.
So they wait for a calm day.
Yeah.
Not in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah, probably not. But man, 4th time that thing has landed again.
Yeah.
2nd stage went on and did its business. It's deploying some satellites. So
yeah. Now I think aren't those satellites the thousands of little mini satellites?
There's 60 of them.
60 of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Now is this a new GPS system or not?
I got it was some type of communication system.
Okay.
But
not any top secret military.
As far as we know.
As far as we know. Right. Yeah. That's top secret, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
Speaking of rockets.
You totally above board.
Speaking of rockets, and this is something I thought was interesting. And this is, again, I'm gonna tout my show that I've been rewatching again.
Forbidden Planet.
No, I did tout that, but which is really 1956. When you look at that was 1980s technology in a lot of ways. It was. When you look at it, it's pretty good stuff. They had a couple of little shortcomings. But well, yeah, but I mean, seriously, it was
Actually, Robbie the Robot was pretty
pretty
good.
It was really good. But speaking of rockets, 150 rockets fired at Israel after the Israel defense people assassinated a Gaza terror leader. Now, apparently what they did is they found out where he was, and they blew up the building or something, wherever he was. And they think they got one of the main guys.
Mm-hmm.
The Israel Defense Forces on Tuesday ordered schools closed at the southern and central Israel, including a bunch of places, Tel Aviv, and terror groups in the Gaza Strip began firing dozens of rockets at cities and towns throughout the country in retaliation for the assassination of a Palestinian Islamic Jihad senior commander, Baha Abu al
Baha, ha ha ha.
Baha, right. Yeah, Baha from Baha. So anyway, but what was interesting to me was, this is from Gaza or whatever it is. Now, I don't know I have not looked at the entire map out and everything, but these are the people where do you get 150 rockets? I mean, who is supplying them these rockets that are being fired out all over the place?
Right.
I mean, don't have these are rockets that, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, they're pretty good size. I mean, they got to be, 30 feet big or something.
No. These are smaller rockets.
What are they, bottle rockets?
The 6-foot variety or something.
Okay.
Yeah, these are sort of barely guided, and
the defense shield can shoot a lot of them down.
It does,
but still,
occasionally
it's
one lands in a market and blows up a little area and kills some people. It happens, and so.
But I mean, I'm looking at this.
Apparently, that's what the big kerfluffle is. That's the concept is it. Now I can't remember if it's Saudi Arabia or if it's Iran that is the main supplier of those rockets.
But how did they get them in there, I wonder? I mean,
well, that was the question of
150.
They bring them in with ships and stuff. And remember we had that issue with Israel stopped that ship with the medical supplies on it, and it was a bunch of rockets and stuff like that. And so, look, they got a problem. They got a problem over there until they've got to have a cleaner separation between the two countries.
Well, I'm going to tout my series that I've watched again.
Oh, okay.
West Wing.
Oh, okay.
This is from season 6. I think it's season 6.
Fantastic television.
Fantastic television. In season, there's like 20 episodes in each season. And I think it's either season 5, episode 6, or season 6 episode. No, it's season 5 I'm up to. And I think it's episode 6, which has to do, and episode 1 or 2 has to do exactly with this making peace between the Palestinians and all the stuff they went through. There's like 2 episods on this. And
every president is done.
No, I'm saying this was written in 1994. Okay. So what are we talking about here? 25 years ago, and it could have been written yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, literally yesterday. They had the people's Camp David, the meetings, the back and forth, the whole day. I mean, you look at this and you think this was written yesterday, and all the conflicts. It's unbelievable. I just was stunned to see the parallels.
It's totally believable from my perspective because they're trying to live an integrated system that's just not going to work.
But when you see the stumbling blocks that were written into this script 25 years ago, they are precisely the same ones and what they're talking about is this has been going on, this is in 99, has been going on for 25 years.
Yeah.
And now and I'm thinking, Jesus, how do these people come up with this stuff? I mean, it was on the money.
It was perfect. Yeah, it's amazing. His advisors must have been deep.
Well, the advisors, interestingly enough, when you look at the credits, it was D.D. Myers and some other people that were in the Clinton administration.
Yeah.
And that's why, of course, Bartlett is a Democrat. Mm-hmm. But what's also interesting is that you look at Josh as one of the senior advisors, and as far as he's concerned, every Republican is dirt. Mm-hmm. I mean, absolutely, he's a Republican. We don't want, and they go on, but the divide is still not as wide as it is today. But still, it's a pretty serious divide. And when you see the fact that some of the retaliation stuff, when there was there was a problem. Not only was there the Israeli-Palestinian business that they had to do, there was another episode where they had something to do in the Mideast that something got blown up. And the first thing, I mean, they went into the room and the generals and everything said, we bomb the shit out of them. We no, bomb them. No, we take them out. You know, we get the 6th Fleet in there, the whole deal. We'll put them on ready alert. And it was only Barton, the president, that said, "Hey, wait a minute, maybe what's the threat assessment, the collateral damage assessment? Somewhere between 15 and 75." Well, that seems a little wide. And then what had happened is they'd killed 2 guys. Mm-hmm. It was, what's their name, had gone over there, and they had in a kind of not a peacekeeping thing, but they were looking around, and somebody there was a roadside bomb that killed 2 congressmen. And a retired general, and then one of the principals, one of the girls got wounded badly. Mm-hmm. But for this, they were going to unleash the dogs of war on, the retaliation was, the recommended retaliation, and they were vociferous about this. We're going to kill them all. And that was one of the things was we just wipe them all out. That's if we have to. I'm thinking, Jesus, you know what? This is so perfect. When we look at this, and it's out of today. These people have never learned, and you could look at that.
Well, you have to actually give the Israelis a little bit of credit for the restraint that they've shown. Not wiping out the groups that are still bombing them from right over there.
And of course, what was interesting was in the episode about when they got the Palestinians and whoever was all together, that was a lot of the stuff they were discussing. Mm-hmm. Was and then settlements was a big, how much land do we give up, take in, all that stuff.
It's all been divided up a million times. That's why it'll never work. You can't do it that way. It doesn't work that way. That's why there's borders.
What's so funny about this is this was absolutely 100% recognized in fiction, quote unquote, in 1994. 25 years ago, and nothing's changed. I mean, you would think that the people today, if you're watching this, politicians, go back and watch West Wing season 6, episode 5, or whichever one it is that has to do with the meeting of the Palestinians, Israelis, or whatever it was, and what they had to go through. I think it was over 2 episodes, might have been, and the acrimony and what they had to balance off and everything. And do you see?
See, it's too bad they couldn't go back and rewrite it so that the guys made the correct decision.
Actually, what happened is in this one, I'm up to the episode now where they made a decision. They came to an agreement. And it was a really cobbled together agreement.
Right, that's the whole point.
It was wholly cobbled together, and literally this next episode is like 3 or 4 weeks after the agreement, and suddenly it's breaking down already.
Right. Yeah. So what see now they can't do a show like this because it's unrealistic, but they should have had a show where one group just bombs the crap out of the other one, or they just take it over. Like, okay, well, we're gonna take Jerusalem now.
Well, that was
you can't have any of it.
Big bone of contention.
Right.
Was over Jerusalem.
Right. Well, that's the big issue. That's always been the big issue, and then you can't have a city like that where you have zones of control. That doesn't work. That's not how humans associate. That's like
they had it like in Berlin.
Yeah, exactly.
Zones of control.
Yeah, that's right. And then and how long did that last?
How did that work for you? Yeah, mm-hmm. That's right. No, it's just kind of okay. Let me run through real quick here.
Okay.
A couple things. Oh, geez. Let me just. They also had some great. They had a great series on China, establishing relations with China and about Taiwan. Whole thing, this is 25 years ago, this is all written. Taiwan wants American fighters, but will Washington sell them? A few months ago, the U.S. State Department announced that it would approve $2.2 billion arms deal with Taiwan, including 100 Abrams main battle tanks and 250 Stinger man-portable surface-to-air missiles. And
yeah, well, that's what we should do. We should be selling the crap out of arms to Hong Kong right now. Well, they're over there fighting with bow and arrow. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they have. I know. But still, Hong Kong you can't sell to Hong Kong. That's part of China now.
Well,
Taiwan is not. Taiwan is one of these indeterminate things where it's independent, but it's no name. And
I'm with you. I'm just thinking.
Taiwan still doesn't, and they had a big hoorah about Jed Bartlett, in the 25 years ago. And what happened was in the premier, they had Countries Day or something like that, and a lot of these countries came up and presented flags to the president and did all kinds of, and he was just shaking hands and going through. Well, of course, the Taiwan guy presented him with a flag of the original Taiwan, and this was a huge insult to China. And what are we going to do now? And oh my God, we're engaged in these negotiations that are all broken apart, and it just on and on and on. I mean, it was like, God.
All right.
Time machine.
It's good.
All right.
It's a good show.
Good show. Okay, good. Speaking of China, though, they have the what slowdown? Chinese shoppers set new Singles Day spending record. Apparently, they have a special day that singles, quote unquote, get special deals. Well, they've enlarged to everybody, so it doesn't really matter. But they set all kinds of records. Apparently, Alabama went over the top.
That's one of their biggest
day. It's like our Black Friday. So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Well, China, interestingly, there's more coming out about their concentration camps and how they're treating the Uyghurs and the other minority groups. And I gotta think, the interesting thing to me is, I have got to believe if China is running actual concentration camps where they're actually mining people for
their body parts.
Yes, or something like anything remotely like that, our intelligence agencies have to be aware of it. But the thing is that something that is like too big for an administration to acknowledge that they know? Because that's the kind of thing that you would hear calls for war about. I mean, that's like, it's a Holocaust level event. It's like, are there really like a few million people in unjust prisons in China? And it's just a weird, it's something that if it were true, A, we would know, but B, it might be so big and offensive to so many people in the United States that we would try to not let it get out.
Well, there is some, I'm not sure exactly, I'd have to do a little more research on it, but apparently most of the higher-ups knew about the Holocaust in Germany as it was going on.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me.
But nobody here knew about it. We still had,
and that may be the case in the 40s. Okay, but today we have satellites and everything.
Oh, I know that. I know that. But they do have the satellites and everything. But like you say, what are you going to do? You got a billion people over there, just about, and so you have a million, say, which is 0.01% or whatever, 0.1% that are in these concentration camps and having their kidneys harvested.
Yeah. I agree. It's too big of a problem to deal with I mean, we can't obviously invade China to protect.
I don't think so.
No, I know. Well, not only that, but it's interesting because you've got that impetus that is huge. And then you've got these people who are still running around like Greta Thunberg or whatever, who are saying, oh my God, we're going to die. And of course, if that's true, if that's really true, then really the only way to save the planet is to invade China and shut down all the fossil fuel burning plants. I mean, that's you couldn't do it any other way.
You'd have to invade the United States and cut them down too,
Well, ours are way less than
I don't think so. We're way up there. We're way up, because of our cars and everything. We're way up there. We got a lot of stuff. Now we've cleaned it up because of catalytic converters and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think we'll have to pull the numbers, but I think
pull the numbers up because I think that we are still, with 6% of the world's population, we still 30% of the pollution.
That may be, yeah, but I think 60% of the pollution is coming out of China. Yeah. I don't think it's even that much for us. I think it's down. I think we're down in the teens.
We're going to bring that to you the next show.
Okay, there we go.
We'll bring that to you next show. We're just about done here. The only thing I had left was Bolivia. We can skip that.
Well, that's an interesting concept. I mean, Morales is out.
Yeah.
We've been talking about that for a while.
He scampered over to Mexico, and Mexico said, come on in.
Yeah.
And, of course, you wonder about Morales' Swiss bank accounts or whatever it is or something.
Yeah, he must have got a pretty good reassurances from Mexico.
So, yeah. I would think so.
And apparently there's riots in the streets now.
Oh yeah, but at least he was smart enough to get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Not like Saddam Hussein, who idiot. He could have fled to Switzerland or something. So yeah. Okay. The only other little minor thing. Let's see. We talked about Hillary. Well, the Bitcoin price has tanked again.
Yeah, it's been bouncing around the 8,000.
I thought it was under one. I thought it went down to about 7,500.
It did.
Yeah. The only little minor thing I've got, I've got a couple major things that I'll bring in next time about the whistleblower and the quid pro quo business. But I thought one thing that was interesting was this guy named Don Cherry in Canada, who has been a sports announcer. I guess it's for hockey in Canada for 40 years or so, 38 years. Beloved sportscaster, kind of like our guy here that does the Gators, and he has this show called After the Game or something like that. For 38 years he's done this, and he made a 2-word comment that said something about oh, I know, it was Canada Day. And on Canada Day, I didn't realize this, but you buy poppies for you buy these poppies. And I saw the Queen, for instance, had 5 poppies, and the Prince had 2 poppies. And the Canadians, you went out and bought the red poppies and so forth. So he got all hot and bothered, and he said, he'd been walking around and he saw people. This was to honor the veterans. Big honor for Veterans Day. And if you people... you come here, you take all of our stuff here, you live in the high life, and we're doing all this kind of stuff. This is Canada.
He said, at least you should buy the poppies.
At least you should buy the poppies.
Right.
And of course, it was the you people. And they fired him. They fired him. And he's 84 years old. He'd been doing it for 38 years. But they fired him because of the you people. And he came out, he says, I meant everybody should own one. They didn't
look, he obviously meant the people who weren't buying them.
Right. But
whoever that is.
Well, it was the people.
You have to draw an inference if you have to.
Well, he had said you people. He said basically you people who come here and enjoy Canada.
Right.
The least you can do is to buy a poppy on Poppy Day, or whatever on Canada Day or whatever it is. And so anyway, boy, they said that the Canadian broadcast, which is of course one of the problems when you have state broadcasting, lit up. And not even if it's been private though, it probably would have lit up. But this is the far cry from they have this Canada Day or whatever every year.
Right.
But I guess this was the year he said, least you could do is buy a poppy to show your respect for our veterans.
Sounds horrifying.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
triggered.
Yeah, boy, so anyway, and so they interviewed him, and he said, I'm not taking it. Oh, his co-host took it all back. I apologize. I was scraping.
I apologize.
I'm sorry.
I found this great comedian who I love now, and his motto is never apologize, never explain.
All right. Well, that's pretty much what Trump doesn't say. Never. He says never apologize, but he's done a lot of explaining.
Yeah. So. Well, this comedian's great. I'll post a thing with. Just super fast. Rudy Giuliani's thinking about starting a podcast.
I saw that.
Oh my God, Trump! Jesus, fire that guy now.
Yeah. Right.
And hire Alan. And then also, did you see? AOC had a big interview with Big Pharma.
No.
She was interviewing. She was saying, how can you charge $6,000 for this treatment that it costs $8 in Australia? And he said, well, the patents. And I guess she didn't realize she's in charge of the patents.
Okay.
It's just everybody was like, oh, look, she laid into him.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, did she? Because
I don't know.
He pretty much said you authorized it.
Yeah, right. Well, it's in the Constitution.
Well, I know, but not the lengths of time.
Oh no. They have to. Well, that's so funny when you talk about copyright law. What's so funny about that is now it's stretched way out.
Oh, it's 100 and something years.
Well, not only that, the last time they extended it, they called it the Disney.
Right.
The Disney extension because it didn't want to lose the copyright on the mouse.
Yeah, that's it.
Jesus.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Never
go against the power of the mouse. A friend of mine who used to fly balloons, he was flying the mouse balloon and they went to Moscow and took off from Fred Square or something like that, and they said, "Well, how'd you get to do? You never." The Russians are all crazy about Disney, you know. So I mean, when the mouse goes over there, they go nuts. So
it works. Scott left us a note here. He said it's not about Pence, not for show. It says it's about the rule of law and upholding the Constitution. He's talking about impeachment gate.
okay,
I disagree. They're not trying to uphold anything.
no, what they're doing is it's the quid pro quo. What are you talking about? Everything is quid pro quo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a reading. There is a reading where you could say, well, it's just doing their solemn duty, but I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. I don't. Look, they've been trying to get Trump since he got in office. This is just the next chapter, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't think they'd be happy with Pence either. But anyway, thanks for joining us, Scott. Appreciate it. These tracks brought to you by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks, Kevin. We really appreciate your musical genius here. We'll be back on Sunday, the 17th of November, right here, and also up on YouTube, Twitter, and other places. So, see you soon.
You'll have a timestamp with the.
Yeah, up on YouTube in very short order. I'm Counselor Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doane Show.